Guests stole our Thanksgiving turkey. I'm confused and frustrated and I need to vent. We hosted Thanksgiving this year. Husband and I, our 2 kids, husband's siblings and nieces and nephews. And most importantly, husband's gravely ill mother. We're all at peace that this Thanksgiving and Christmas will probably be our last holidays together. It's been emotional and exhausting, but we really wanted to make a memorable day that everyone would enjoy. Our daughter Mary is visiting from college, and one day before she flew in, she says her boyfriend, Chris, is actually flying to our city to visit friends over the break. Mary asked if he could come over for Thanksgiving. We've never met Chris before, but to be honest, we're not wild about him. As soon as Mary started dating him, we started seeing some worrying changes in her. Our son, who was just a couple of years older, confided in us that Mary is getting into the party scene largely because of Chris. We've tried gently bringing up our concerns with Mary, but she shuts it down and has started to pull away from us. So because we didn't want to alienate her, we said Chris could visit, but they'd need to stay in separate rooms. She said that won't matter because he's booked a hotel room and she'll be staying there with him the whole weekend. Okay. Cut to Thanksgiving and Mary and Chris arrive. He's not the greatest. He makes a couple of rude or snide remarks throughout the visit and hits the alcohol way harder than is appropriate. My family was in a very earnest mood, if that makes sense. Lots of emotion. And he was just dismissive and flippant and cast a shadow on everything. At one point, everyone started telling stories about their favorite holidays at my mother-in-law's house when she would go all out for family parties. My husband and I stopped working in the kitchen to join the conversation. When we go back to the kitchen after maybe half an hour, I went to check the turkey in the oven and it was gone, completely missing. I asked my husband if he did something with the turkey and he was just as confused as I was. We looked all over the kitchen and house and couldn't find it. We go out to the living room and ask everyone if they know what happened to the turkey, and no one knows what we're talking about. At this point I realize Chris isn't around. I pull Mary to the side and ask where he is because I don't want to jump to conclusions and make accusations. She said he had to leave to go and meet up with friends. I asked her to text him and ask if he knows what happened to the turkey, and Mary kind of rolled her eyes. At this point, it's dawning on me that Chris probably stole the turkey and left out the back door while we were sharing stories with my mother-in-law. But I'm just so confused why anyone would do something like that. I can't bring myself to actually make the accusation out loud. So we were left in the terrible position of having everything else ready, but no turkey. We had to break it to the family that we had no turkey, and everyone is confused and sad. Mary said she had to get going to an event with Chris, which deeply disappointed me. I told her as much, and she just said she'll see us again later this weekend. My in-laws went driving around to restaurants and grocery stores and pieced together enough stuff that we were able to have a meal much later than expected, but it felt like the whole day was ruined. Everyone was kind of murmuring about Chris leaving around the time the turkey disappeared, but nobody actually wanted to accuse him out loud because it's such an explosive allegation and there's not actually any proof. I'm just confused as to why anyone would do such a thing, and heartbroken because my mother-in-law didn't deserve this at all. At one point she teared up but pulled it together. I'm also increasingly angry with my daughter, but I feel like I can't say anything because she'll just pull away more. And then a little update. I was talking with my son today and he told me that last night Chris started taunting him over text about the missing turkey. So that settles it. Chris stole the turkey, basically as a big FU to all of us. My son didn't say anything at the time because he didn't want to make people more upset than they already were. One of my husband's siblings is very mad at us for how things turned out and how my mother-in-law was disrespected. This sibling is not talking with us right now. I've tried calling and texting Mary, but she is so far ignoring me. That is all I have to say about this. The first thing that just springs to my mind here is what a weird thing to do. Why would you steal the turkey? I presume to go and eat it with your mates, but what a strange thing to do in your girlfriend's family home to steal a turkey at Thanksgiving. I've never heard anything like it, and I'm not that surprised. Can you imagine first time meeting your girlfriend's parents? You're trying to put on a good show, be polite, clearly failed. Be a nice person, clearly failed. Don't steal the turkey. Yeah, failed that one too. I don't know. I feel like you've got to just leave it up to your daughter to eventually just realize that this kid is weird. Wow. Let's carry on. Now, before we get into our next story, I have a very special announcement for you. After an insane amount of demand from you guys, I'm delighted to say that I've released some limited edition Not Today Karen merch. Picture this, you're out and about in the streets and a wild Karen appears and starts confronting you. What do? Well, normally you have to talk to a witch like this. However, get one of these t-shirts or hoodies on and all you have to do is simply point to it, laugh, and walk away How easy is that? The link is down in the description if you like what you see. Go ahead, check the stuff out. I think they'd make a great Christmas present or even just a little gift for yourself. As always, it's official stuff from the very best supplier, so the quality is unmatched, and it's one of the best ways to support me and the channel. With that being said, let's carry on. My son spent $2,000 on my debit card to go party with his friends in a different state. I'm beyond furious. When you become a parent, there are all sorts of moments where you wonder where it all went wrong, but this really takes the cake. He's 17, and me and his father are divorced but have a great relationship. He's never seen us fighting or anything like that because he was young when it happened. I've been 100% honest with him about it, and it never seemed to negatively affect him. Right when he turned 14 though, he started making my life a living hell. Sneaking out to go and hang with girls, not doing his homework, stuff like that. I've always been very relaxed when it came to the discipline stuff because my father abused me as a kid. I would take his phone rather than keep him from friends or making it to where he had to come straight home after school, but the behavior only got worse. Up until a few months ago, I thought I raised a son from hell. But he started getting better, and we actually communicated like I wanted. He blamed it on stress, missing his dad, he's 3 states away for work right now, and other stuff. Because he was starting to be so good, I let him have a card attached to my bank account so he could spend money on stuff he liked. That turned out to be a mistake, however, as when I went to go check on him at 7 AM after getting a glass of water, he wasn't in his bed. Of course, I start furiously calling him, but he's not answering. I say I have several texts from my bank about various amounts being spent from his card. I immediately disabled his card from my banking app. I'm gonna be honest here, I cried and cried. The amount equaled to about $2,000, and while I'm not exactly living paycheck to paycheck, it's really gonna hold me down. I called his dad and told him what happened, then sent him a very long text of how I felt and how dare he freaking do this to the person putting a roof over his head. He finally answered at 9, saying he was over state lines and couldn't come home immediately. When he did finally get home, however, we had a huge altercation. I did throw stuff at him and told him to get out of my house. I've never felt so out of control. I've never screamed and cussed as much as I did in that moment. He said the reason he did it was because he finally got a legit girlfriend and wanted to impress her and the boys. Apparently, some of his friends are as old as 21. I don't know where he is right now, and frankly, I couldn't care less. I told his father he needs to fly down here and get him. I'm tired of putting up with abuse from my son, and this was the last freaking straw. You sacrifice everything to give someone a good life just to get spit in the face, and I'm tired of it. I've been calling my bank to get this all sorted out, but I feel like I've just been stabbed in the heart. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Just a horrible thing for your son to do. The problem that you've got is, how do you even deal with this? Like, what do you do now? Is it even your fault that this happened in the first place? I don't know. Obviously, there are different ways of parenting, right? You can go down the really strict route, and you've got your reasons for not doing that, and that's fair enough. And often, if a parent does that, then their child will rebel against them and end up being worse than they would have been anyway. So for me, in my experience of my parents and what I think I would do with my children, is be a pretty lenient parent and let them make their own decisions and fail for themselves, and then, you know, at least they'll have common sense. But I don't know. Clearly, in this situation, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked, and your kids seem to just have little respect for you, if I'm honest. $2,000 on your card. Yeah, I would never ever do that. I think the thing now is that you have to tell him that he needs to pay back the money, right? Sell a games console, work, do whatever. It might take a long time, but it's your money that he's stolen without asking. He has to pay it back. My husband might figure out that our son is not his. I don't know what he or I will do if he does. I know I'm a cheater, but please hear me out. I've been married to my husband for 12 years. I'm 32 and he is 40. At the time, I'd just been disowned by my family for leaving our religion, and he was a nice, financially secure man who I felt protected me. I married him a year after we started dating. He demanded I become a housewife. He made me close my bank accounts, and the only money I had was his. He was able to make more than enough to support us comfortably. I had 2 kids in the first 4 years, and I was happy. Then things just shifted. He yelled at me for the first time, and it was terrifying. I thought he could hurt me, so I silenced myself. That started the heel turn. He was angry, moody, bipolar, and I no longer felt safe around him. I slept with one eye open. I was, and still am, always scared. He's never hit me, but just the sound of his booming voice is enough to tell me to be careful. He's 6'2" and I'm 5'7". If he wanted to, he could seriously hurt me and our kids. The constant fear and feeling of being unloved and unrespected led me to a series of self-destructive behaviors, including promiscuity. 4 years ago, I had my son. I knew at the time there was a possibility my husband wasn't the father. When he was around 2, I needed to know, and my husband was not. I don't know who is. As my son gets older, it's becoming very clear that my husband isn't the father. My son has none of his features, along with having olive skin and jet black hair, when both of us are blondes of Scandinavian descent. I've already overheard his family talking. He assures them nothing happened. They're gonna keep pressing this until he knows, or maybe he does know and is just in denial. I'm scared. If he does find out, I don't know what he'll do to me or my son. I know this will drive him crazy and he'll do something. He'll throw me out. I've got no money, I've got no family, no friends, no one. At this point, my son is a ticking bomb. I don't know what to do. I mean, what do you even say to this one? Guys, if you've got any advice off the rip, get in the comments down below and let OP know. Look, let's try and get over the fact that they've cheated. We know this is a bad thing. Don't really get stuck up on it. Just in this situation with that in the past, what on earth do they do now? But then again, you did cheat unprotected multiple times with multiple men and you have no idea whose baby you now have. That's kind of crazy. And look, you're painting him out to be bad, and that's absolutely fine if he does scare you, but you have to take some ownership for what you've done. I'm not saying that you're totally in the wrong here and that he's actually alright, but it's kind of like, you know, both of you have done some pretty bad things here, and ultimately you are the one that cheated. It doesn't sound like he's ever actually abused you, right? Yeah, he's raised his voice, but that's not illegal. Maybe it's a bit scary, but I don't know. You did also cheat on him and have a kid with someone else that he doesn't know about. Which one's worse? Also, like, you say you're too afraid to leave your husband, but then you weren't too afraid to cheat on him. Not passing judgment here, maybe that makes sense, but it is a bit of a weird one, right? I don't know. You lot decide down below. Am I being silly here? What's the play? Get in the comments. Yesterday was my birthday, and it was the worst one I've ever had. I am a 29-year-old woman, and it was my birthday yesterday. An awful day. My mum and dad insisted on taking me to a museum I've wanted to visit for a while, and said the admission would be my present. We got there and it was free. After the museum, we went to lunch. I had a restaurant in mind, but my mum insisted on one that she likes. We get there and my dad asked who was paying. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I offered. When they came to order, they ordered a bottle of wine for £35 and scoffed that I wanted a cocktail. I don't drink wine, it doesn't agree with me. The bill came to more than £100 and they offered to cover the wine only. They didn't even cover the entire cost of the bottle. I'm going on holiday to Spain later this week and they presented me with some pesos they've had for 30 plus years from their honeymoon. I pointed out that Spain has been in the Eurozone for about 20 years, so I won't be able to spend them, but they shrugged and called me ungrateful. They also gave me a gift basket filled with food that I'm allergic to. I checked the food basket online to see if I could exchange it for one I could eat, and it was £21. I'm venting, because the reality is I would have been happy with a £10 bottle of Prosecco and some chocolates, but they got me stuff I can't use. They're getting my sister an iPad Pro, over £1,000 for her birthday, and they just bought my brother a car. Money shouldn't be an issue for them. My dad's a manager earning $72,000 before taxes, and they recently inherited £100,000. But it's not what they spent on me that bothers me, it's the lack of effort. They've both turned 60 this year, and I bought them an expensive trip away with all the extras. Spa, afternoon tea, champagne in the room, flowers, dinner, in a place they've always wanted to travel to. It was meant to be a joint gift from myself and my siblings. We're all in our late 20s, but I've ended up paying for all of it. I just feel unappreciated, like I've been taken for a mug, and I ended the day on my sofa, cuddling my dog and having a little cry. Now this one is just terribly sad, and of course I completely side with you, OP, on this one. It's just a weird one again. I don't know if you've done something wrong here, your parents just don't like you. Why are they spending so much time and effort on your other siblings but not you? Did you sin in a former life? I don't know the answers. All I can say is that I hope you have some good friends that kind of can substitute in for your family, and maybe it's worth just spending more time with them rather than your parents, especially. The fact that they're asking you to pay for meals on your birthday and choosing restaurants for themselves when they're spending thousands on your other siblings is kind of nuts. Yeah, maybe don't spend as much time with them. I know it's deep, but it's pretty fair. I left the country to avoid paying child support for a kid I didn't want. I'd been with my girlfriend for a year at the time. We were both 22 and just out of university, getting started on our careers. One night she tells me that she missed her period. We got a test and it turned up positive. Mind you, I was a bit surprised because I always used protection, and she told me she was on birth control. We discussed this prior and we decided to hold off on having kids until at least 5 years later when we were both set, so I was sure we'd safely abort. I thought I'd just be there to comfort her and give her time to process what's happening. But 3 weeks later, she tells me she wants to keep it. I keep pleading with her, telling her I'm not ready and we're not going to be okay financially, but she insists that this is what she wants and that we'll be happy. I firmly told her I was not on board, and she responded saying it was her sole decision and she'd made up her mind. We decide to take a break from each other because of the constant fighting and eventually decide to part ways. I speak with my parents about this, and while I was initially planning to stay back and help raise the kid, they convinced me that it's best if I leave the country. country. My father was a dual citizen of both the US and another country, which I also inherited. We spoke to multiple lawyers and knew that I would be untouchable by US courts, and there weren't any enforceable child support treaties with that country. The last I heard, she had a successful pregnancy and was reaching out to all our mutual contacts to try and reach me. I only disclosed this to a few close friends, who thankfully didn't share anything with her. I do sometimes wonder what it would have been like to raise the child, and I wish her well. But not having any say in the final decision and being forced into it still gives me nightmares. Wow, there we go. And in the comments, someone has asked, that means you can never come back to the US, right? And OP has said, no, and I don't intend to. That is just crazy. I do kind of get it from his perspective. Put yourself in his shoes. He clearly does not want this baby. What do you do? Look, she's right. It is, of course, her entire decision. But from his perspective, like, he's kind of screwed here. Like, what actually do you do in that spot? Run? That's what he did. Can you imagine? The kid gets on Reddit in about 15 years, finds this post from 15 years ago, goes, oh, this looks interesting. Maybe this is me. That would be crazy. And I'm here for it. If I'm still doing this in 15 years and you are the kid and you found this video perhaps, comment down below. How are you getting on? Now, for our final story of today's episode, this is something that I do like doing. It's been a bit of a negative episode, you know? A lot of sad stories, especially that last one. Kind of just tragic, really, that whole situation happened. So to end off today's episode, I'm going to bring you a wholesome post. Have a little look at this. My friend ordered me McDonald's and I've never been so touched. I went to a friend's house earlier today to watch some football. We'll call him Brad. My friends do this sort of thing all the time. It's really casual and we just chill out for the day. Normally we order food, but today Brad made pulled pork sliders for everyone. I was diagnosed with a digestive disorder this year and have a really limited list of food that's safe for me to eat. And I can't eat pork. I ate before I arrived, so this wasn't a big deal. I was just planning on skipping them. About a half hour after we get there, someone knocks on the door delivering McDonald's. Brad answers and brings the bag straight to me and goes, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were coming and I want you to be able to eat. This is safe, right? McDonald's cheeseburgers are one of my safe foods, and I've mentioned it before. It seems like such a silly thing, but it seriously touched me. A lot of the time, I feel like people don't take my digestive disorder seriously, and it was just really nice to have someone go the extra mile for you. I have never been happier to eat a cheeseburger. And there we go, finally, some good stuff. I mean, that is just a lovely story, because to be fair, you didn't have to do it. You said you were alright with it, but no, Brad's gone out of his way to just be a good man, and that is what we look for in friends. A good lad right there. I can't say that I empathize with you, but I definitely sympathize. I can imagine that a lot of people are just like, oh, digestive disorder? What does that mean? Just eat it, mate. It will be all right. And that would probably be extremely frustrating for you after a while. I completely understand that. So to have someone fully recognize what you're going through and the disorder you have, and then go the extra mile and actually buy you something that you can eat and then enjoy your food with your pals, that is simply class from Brad. Yeah, what a good man.